welcome and thanks for joining us for this special webinar. I'm super excited to get to share with you. We've got some awesome guests today sharing about all the things that they are doing with Snorkl that's so powerful. If you are joining us live, I invite you to drop a message in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. My name is John. I'm one of the co-founders of Snorkl and really excited to get to connect with you today in this time together. I'm really excited to be joined today by Holly Clark and Michelle Maple and Michelle Dunaway from Prosper ISD, where something really special I think is happening. They've had over the last 7 weeks of school, over 85,000 student responses in Snorkl. They've got their students talking and explaining their thinking and sharing it in every class. They've got kids getting feedback. And I think part of what makes this so special is this is not some top-down program. This is teachers getting really excited about the tool and what they can do with Snorkl and seeing that impact on students. So without any more intro from me, I'm really excited to hand it off to Holly, Michelle, and Michelle. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I will let Michelle and Michelle go in a second. I'm just going to talk for a second. And I just have to give a shout out to my friend from Lake Taupo, New Zealand, because that's somewhere I get to go all the time. So thank you for joining us. And other friends in here I see as well, but that's pretty far. So, and there's a friend from Cairo. But I'm going to start today by talking to you just a little bit about what Snorkl is, so that as Michelle tell their examples, you'll kind of have a point of reference for what they're talking about. So the first thing is that in a world of AI, we often don't know if students have cognitively offloaded tasks that you assign them at home when they get home and maybe they're using some form of AI. So having kids talk about their learning, while it's always been important, is even more important now. So I just want to put that out. And something that I've been talking about since forever is that what we need to do with really good technology integration is find a way to make student thinking visible, to give every student a voice. And that means a kid with an English as a second language learner. It means a neurodivergent kid, kids who might normally not speak in class, giving them that opportunity to metacognitively put what they're learning into words. And that is actually where learning solidifies in that experience. I was always a big fan of Flipgrid. No one here probably doesn't know that. And Snorkl has become like my dream scenario of Flipgrid because I don't have to watch all the videos where students are doing their thinking. And the AI gives the instant feedback, and then I can just look over the insights and then make my next teaching moves based on those insights. And so what is Snorkl? I just want to start with that. It is a platform that allows students to talk about their learning and then gives them instant feedback. And it doesn't always have to be talking about your learning. There are times when you can be writing, but I really value that student thinking. And so I'm going to start with the power of student feedback. And then after the Michelles go, I'm going to talk about what the research says about student thinking and how important that can be. So Snorkl is super easy. We're going to see this in a second. The teacher assigns a question or a prompt. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. Students record their thinking and explanations or do a writing assignment. And then AI provides them instant feedback so they can see their own misconceptions and learn to self-correct in those misconceptions. And before 2023, when this came out, or 2024, I don't know the exact year, but we knew that instant feedback was important, but getting it meant that the student came to our desk and we had to spend this amount of time with each and every student. And now that can look different.
First, I drew a box.
This is actually an assignment, an activity using a whiteboard. And then the teacher came in here, put this text, and then the kid's going to respond. And we're just going to listen to this for a second.
And then I added 29. And 29.
So let me just say that this is a math problem where the kids got to find the measurements of the quadrilateral. We know that the perimeter is 146. We know that there's 29. So if there's 29 on one side, there's 29 on the other, and the kid has to find those two other missing
on
amounts.
The top and bottom. And then I added 29 plus 29, and then it equals 58. Then I did 146 minus 58, and I got 88. And then I split 88, and I came up with 44. And then I put 44 on the two sides of the box.
So I'm going to speed it up. And so he does that. And then Snorkl gives him the feedback that he did a great job, and gives him all the feedback. The kid can just use this sound button to hear that if they need to. They can also just read it. And in this particular instance, it said that he didn't got a 3 out of 4, which I think he got it right, but it will give us some advice on maybe you need to understand. It does right here. Can you explain your reasoning? And so it asks him to keep going. It's just not like one right answer. Great, you got the answer right, but we need to hear more about that reasoning process. And this is everything. So here's the power of instant feedback. I'm going to say this quick because I don't want to spend a lot of time here. But cognitive research or science shows us that students retain information better when they receive feedback while their working memory is still engaged. And that means they're doing that problem. They don't have to hand it in and get it back 3 days later. And this is how we get growth, and why we haven't had the growth that we have been looking for. It's because we don't have that instant feedback. Research also says that in math and writing, delayed feedback allows those misconceptions to solidify. So we're trying to get away from that, and we can now. It also says that when students get quick feedback, they stay engaged, they feel more supported, and they want to keep going, and they're less likely to give up. So this is really important, because a lot of kids, we know this, will sit at their computer and go, I don't know what to do next or whatever. But when you're getting that instant feedback, that takes that out of the equation. And then studies show that students in classrooms where teachers provide this immediate feedback consistently perform better on standardized tests. And so I'm going to move over to show you just really quickly what Snorkl looks like. So once I sign in, I get to this dashboard, and there are some activities that I can draw from to like come up with an activity to do with kids. But I'm going to show you how you would create an activity so that when Michelle shows you the activities, you'll know what she's talking about. So I'd have to give this a title, but I can do a plain whiteboarding activity, and that is what you saw in the kid answering the math problem. So the person went here, they added the text. So they said the rectangle, and that's all they did. So I'm going to go back though and show you the next ones. Oops. So let me get out. So here I am again. And you could just do a whiteboarding only where the students draw and show their thinking. Maybe it's not even based on you putting in the question. The question could be on the board. There's audio only, something that we were always looking for with Flipgrid. And then there's the writing response now. And Michelle's going to show you some of those writing responses. So this is why I think that teachers take to this, is because creating activity, there's only 4 things you can do. It's not really hard to get started once you see examples. And then once we have that activity, we ask the kids to talk about their learning. And in that process, not only do we get to hear where they are, and let me just show you something really quickly if I can find it. I shouldn't do this on the fly. But if I go to my math class examples, and I'm going to look for one that has a lot of responses. So here's what I get to see as the teacher. And I have a lot here. Keep going. But I can see if the kids are there yet or not yet, if I need to change my teaching strategies. But I can also get insights into, there's an arithmetic error happening. There's a division error. And so I have that quick data that I can take to make my teacher moves into what I need to get these kids understanding this concept. So it's instant feedback for both the student and the teacher. And so it's so, so strong. And we don't have to have a really static learning anymore. We used to have to go to the copy machine and make these worksheets. And now we can do something that's a little more dynamic. Now, I would never say that kids should answer every math problem using Snorkl, but maybe let's say you were going to assign number 1 through 15. Maybe you do 3 6, and 9 in Snorkl, so that you can make sure that the kid's getting it before they go on to the next 3, something like that. So I'm going to move away and I'm going to stop sharing. Give me 1 second. Actually, John, can you stop sharing for me? And then I want to say a little shout out about the 2 people in my screen below me, like sitting not below me, but underneath or whatever. And this is Michelle Dunaway and Michelle Maple. And I've been working with them for about 5 years. I don't even know. I think 5 could be, I don't know. But I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Prosper ISD, which is just right outside of Dallas. And what they did was Snorkl. And I'm going to be honest right now. I was presenting at their school district and I'm showing all these things and we're doing all this creativity work and all of this stuff. And I barely showed Snorkl. I think I did it in the last part of 2 days. And I came back and they were using it in ways that blew my mind and really changed what I think about this program and made me go, okay, hold on. I got to stop showing this at the end. This needs to be first going forward. So Michelle, so this is Michelle Dunaway and Michelle Maple from Prosper ISD, and I'm going to let you guys take it from here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Dunaway. I'm the coordinator of educational technology.
I'm Michelle Maple. I'm the secondary instructional technology coach.
So when it comes to technology integration in Prosper, we use a purpose strategy tool framework. So we want teachers focusing on the objective and what instructional strategy they want to use, and then find the tool that best fits that. So sometimes it's not a technology tool, but sometimes it is. And we decided to invest in Snorkl because it's such a valuable feedback tool. We do not use it in an evaluative way. It's not our assessment platform. That's not the focus of our use. It provides feedback during that learning process that a lot of times students are waiting for a grade at the end and they're not still in that learning process. It's over. And so Snorkl makes it to where they're getting that feedback immediately while they're still learning. And that makes it even more impactful on learning.
And I think even when we first started using Snorkl, just seeing the level of engagement that students had in the classroom, how it was different than any other tool we had used. Seeing how it was more of a high reward for kids and more of a low risk, especially if they're using Snorkl Coach in there. So they kind of have a little tutor on the side. They could ask questions so they don't feel bad about asking questions. Again, when the teacher can't get to them and give that immediate feedback to them, they get that immediate feedback in kind of a low risk way. And so I'm going to show you some examples that we have in Prosper ISD. Before I do that, I want to be really clear that these are teacher examples, but we work collectively as a group, as instructional technology coaches, instructional coaches, and then with the teachers to not only provide them professional learning around Snorkl and effective use, but also developing some of these prompts using our curriculum too. So really being zoned in on what best practices are. And again, just more focusing on it being a formative tool rather than anything evaluative for students.
Well, and as you show these examples, you're not going to see that part, but I've seen her work with teachers, and something most might not think about is turning off that number system. It really, your kids and what they're focusing on. So if your group of kids is really focusing on the number, oh, I only got a 1, I can't do this, or I got a 4, I'm done, I don't need to know anything else. You can turn that off. And so they're focused on the feedback. And then as they learn to focus on that feedback, because that's new for them, right? They're used to looking for the grade, but you can turn it back on as needed. So that's something that she does with teachers.
Yeah, because we find it even stretches our gifted students in AP courses. It stretches them to think more, especially if it's asking questions, because they think they should get it right the first time. So let's jump into some examples. So we're going to start with social studies. This is a social studies world geography example. This is using Snorkl and a visible thinking routine, or we call some of them instructional strategies. So this is 3, 2, 1, just simple. They popped in a map. And then some teachers like to put in a placeholder where students can pop in text, or as you'll see in a later example, they can use vertical white spaces or write on paper and insert the picture of the student writing. And AI does such a great job of evaluating even a picture of writing and their response. The next example, here's the student response. Forgot we put that in there, so it was nice to see. This one is a high school example, but it's using a political cartoon and asking students to a question and to analyze that political cartoon and provide a response. So just another way, just kind of a different way to use Snorkl for students to use that. This one's a big one. This has been, and you'll see examples throughout other contents as well, but writing their CER. So some teachers decide to put a template inside the Snorkl. So like you'll see here, they color coded the boxes for students just to kind of give them placeholders to put their ideas. So this really helps students through the revision process of their CER before they turn in that final response. Here's our working with maps. So this was developed by a teacher. So they label the map and then label the regions, and then they'll respond to the question verbally.
So can I stop you? Can
Yes.
you go back to that one? So that's what I find really dynamic about this is a lot of worksheets ask kids to label like where is the Middle East or whatever. This apparently is not the Middle East, could be, but and then we never ask them, well, what do you know? And what does this mean? And so you're adding that layer of dynamicness to it. I guess I don't know if that's a word, but that's what I love about this. So I'm sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're not just asking them to just label and then say what you labeled. You're actually asking them a critical thinking question for them to respond to.
And one last thing. Do you remember the day when we used to take home bags of labeling worksheets and we carry them home and do them all?
Colored pencils.
Like,
take out the colored pencils. And colored pens.
like now we don't have to do this. So it's just such a win-win. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Again, just another social studies example, comparing the key characteristics of the colonial regions. Again, the teacher just like kind of placeholders for the kids to respond. This one is a vertical white space.
To that color-coded one really quick.
Sorry.
So it's okay. So this is compare and contrast the key characteristics of each of the 3 colonial regions. Okay.
So yeah, it looks like they actually color-coded each region so they could identify those regions too as they're responding.
One thing I didn't talk about when I was showing how to make a Snorkl whiteboard is that at the bottom, after it, we will read the text and then say, here are the things that I will look for in the feedback. I can accept that, which I usually do. It's really good. Or I can make some tweaks to that. So the teacher probably just put this in, then asked AI to generate the kinds of feedback it's looking for. It read the map, the AI, all of the things. So there's a lot going on here that I think people may not realize. And
anything you put on the whiteboard, AI is going to recognize and then create that criteria. But you can edit all of it, which is really nice. Kind of conform it. We also tell teachers to always, when they're creating a Snorkl, try it as a student first to make sure that when you provide that response, you're getting the response from AI or the feedback that you're looking for in case you need to change that criteria.
And Michelle, there was a question that I think is really interesting as we continue to do this. This person asked, how many students use Snorkl and Prosper, which you probably don't know like a number like that, but you do have 85,000 minutes of thinking, and maybe John knows that number, but they asked how many teachers are utilizing it and students. So you could, I mean, that's a hard thing to answer, but this one, how many instructional coaches do you have to help facilitate the learning, and how do you use this?
See, we have 34,000 students now. We opened 4 campuses this year. And I think that we have 2 instructional coaches. We have instructional technology coaches. We have 2 for secondary and 1 for elementary.
So that's not a lot.
And then we have, we have instructional coaches too, but by content.
I think one of the really powerful things that you all have done at Prosper is you've looped in those instructional coaches by content as well. I know I visited in July and got a chance to share Snorkl with them, and that really positioned them, because they're all in classrooms supporting teachers every day, to position them also to be part of that conversation, which I think is really, really powerful. Okay,
moving into math. So I put this one in here because it showcases the ability to put in a picture or like what we call vertical white space. So using that instructional strategy. So students are writing on a whiteboard or maybe a a poster board of some sort, even on notebook paper. And so they're responding to the question, they're taking the picture. So using, like you had talked about earlier, the toolbar. So when you insert images or text, you can insert images from there. And then AI looks to that image that students have inserted to provide feedback as their response.
Can I ask a question? So
yes.
then is that an actual student response that the other kids are commenting on so that they're having that metacognitive? Or is it?
So sometimes, if I'm understanding what you're saying, so sometimes it might be that they're working the problem together and then responding individually. So actually, when we did our professional learning with teachers, I had them respond to one of the fun ones that they have on there. It was like, I think, to use a spoon or a fork with mac and cheese. And so we did that with our teachers. And so they wrote in the vertical white space together. And then they each went back to and got into their Snorkl and did a response, a verbal response, and uploaded the image of what they had written. So that's one way you could do it, or it could be individual responses.
And have you made little training modules about this?
We have Canvas slide decks. That we go through. I wouldn't say training modules, but yeah, we have Canvas slide decks, and myself and the other instructional technology coaches work together to put those together.
Well, we have a group of teachers called the Agents of EdTech, and we meet with them every quarter, and then they go out and help on their campus. And that was just a suggestion that they made, is having those kinds of things. Yeah. So that's now on our list to make.
I just know you're really good at that, Michelle Dunaway.
You are. It's true. So I have a couple examples following just of some kind of app smashing, you would say. So this is an elementary example in using Braining Camp, which is just a math application. And so they go out to Braining Camp and do their work, and then they take a picture and put that in Snorkl and respond verbally after they've done their work. And then this is a secondary example using the Desmos calculator. And so they would work their problems in the Desmos calculator and then put their work, the image of their work, into Snorkl. And same thing, that verbal response.
And explain how the original function transformed into the new function. So they've got to explain that thinking.
Yes.
Something that I never had to do in math. I just did the problem.
Yeah. So again, just incorporating, outside websites that you're using. I said these were just two examples that we've kind of tested, played around with. Here's another example of the CER, like we looked at in social studies earlier, but through science. Again, with this one doesn't have a template or a place for kids to necessarily map out their CER, but they know how to do that. And then this one does have the mapping out of where to place it, but it also provides those scaffolds. So the question stems to help students focus more on their response. So those that might need those extra question stems. And also just to refer back to the question types, when you're doing the whiteboard, we try to steer teachers to use the whiteboard with recording more, just because of like what you talked about earlier, Holly, with our English language learners. It's really pivotal for them to be able to not only respond, so whether that's on paper and they're writing or they're typing in, but also to explain their thinking, because pairing those two together is so important. And then when AI gives them feedback, they can see how those two come together, because a lot of times we can't get our ideas down on paper.
And a little shout out for the dyslexic kids. Many of you know the fact that I have dyslexia. And so some of this would have been hard for me to do, but if you ask me to talk about my learning, you're going to be amazed at what I know and what I can tell you and the levels at which I'm comprehending this. But if you ask me to put it on paper, it's going to take me 8 hours, where it takes another kid a half hour to do, or it might take a kid to do this 15 minutes, but it would take me, and it would be frustrating, and I would give up. So for the neurodivergent kid, this is a really important thing as well.
And I think that's really important too, just to have that extra layer of, I really didn't know if what I got down on paper or what I wrote was correct, but so they can see that their thoughts matter too, and they can get feedback and then revise their thinking.
And before you go to this next one, someone is asking about music, and Snorkl has music activities, but I've had a teacher tell me before that, and I don't know, and you'll have to tell me, John, if I'm getting this right, but something about putting in a soundbite or having them listen to a soundbite and then saying, like, what do you hear in the melody, whatever, the notes, like what's happening. And it was, really strong. Like it was really interesting to listen to the kid breaking down what was happening in that musical piece. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, you can add links to sound clips or to YouTube videos in the instructions box for students. And one of the updates we're working on this fall is the ability to actually embed those right into the whiteboard as well.
Ooh, I like that. I like that update. That one's going to be a fun one. I like that.
So can I say one other question? Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Something came up and said, since you brought up dyslexic students, is speech to text still only if the teacher types in the question and instructions? No. So speech to text is part of the process. And I had a school for dyslexia in New York City tell me yesterday that other programs, there's speech problems that they don't pick up, that Snorkl picks it up better than any app that they've used, and that it really is like when they maybe fumble on something or whatever, it really understands what they're doing. And they said it by far the best app that this dyslexic school has used for the response of kids. So just wanted to put that out there. Now I'll be quiet as my dog barks in the background. So
we do have a CTE example coming up, so hang on.
Yeah, whoever asked about that. It's not business concepts, but it's a CTE example. So this one is another science example, natural disasters. This is another instructional strategy that we incorporated. It's called Caption This. So you place a picture in the whiteboard, and then it's asking students to look around what the knowledge that they have about natural disasters and then respond what they think is happening in the photo. And then moving on to language arts. So it can be something as simple as just asking students about a character trait from a character and getting a response from that. I had a teacher, I did this with a teacher just last week. She wanted to focus in on truisms. And so she put a pic, this is actually her dog. She was super excited. He looks the sweetest thing ever. And so she just placed in there, she wanted students to develop a truism and practice those. And so I thought this was a great way for her to just get comfortable with Snorkl, but also practicing what she's doing in class. This is a high school example. So one of our high school teachers, English teachers, did this, and they used just the writing student type, response type. And I thought this was really powerful. It's about
stories.
Yeah, stories. Describe what, sorry, I'm a little far from the screen and I'm blind too. Describe what stories mean to you, and explore whether you think stories are independent from one another. I just thought that was really, I can't imagine what all of the responses were like. So I just think that critical thinking piece. And then here's a CTE. So it's not business, but it was interior design. And I thought this was really neat, the way the teacher developed this one too. So I wish I had a business CTE concepts. Maybe in the future we'll have one. But that's our last example. I hope those were helpful. And we're really enjoying using Snorkl. We're taking off. And I just can't wait to keep moving forward, doing better things.
So can you hear me, John? Because I'm off on another screen. I'm trying to, can you hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. So I wanted to show one. So if you'll show my screen right now.
Yeah.
And it's not coming up at this exact second. So I'm going to try as a student. Maybe I'm having some problems, but I want to give a shout out to a teacher in St. Louis. So John and I were in Prosper, and we left and went to Hancock Place School District outside of St. Louis. And one of the teachers that I was working with, that John had left this day, but they were making Snorkl activities to use for the school year. And one of his teachers came up to me and was like, "Can I show mine? Like, I can't wait to show what I did." So what he did is he took a screenshot of his rubric and he put the screenshot on the whiteboard. And then he had the AI read it for like the things that were under advanced proficient and whatever. And he came up and he said, well, let's see. It says, while looking at our grading rubric for the birdhouse, because this is a construction arts person, reflect on where you are in regards to proficient in each of the skill areas, and please be sure to discuss each skill. If you're progressing or below in a particular skill, what can you do to move towards proficiency? And he did a kind of run through trying it himself, the way Michelle Maple said you should do. And he was so excited because whatever he said, it came back and said, well, actually, it says proficient is if you have uneven edges, and you don't have any, you said you didn't have uneven edges or whatever. And it really read what this rubric said and really made the kid reflect on it. And he was so excited. And I didn't know anything about the teachers in the room. I was learning stuff about them. But afterward, the person who was in charge came up to me and she said, he never talks about technology. In fact, he stays away from it a little bit because obviously he's construction arts and, it's just not what he thinks at first. And when he came up to you, I thought he was going to tell you yeah, this doesn't work for me, or whatever. And instead he was so excited about how it had read this rubric. And I think that is showing the dynamic process that we could take something that everyone's doing with these rubrics and really add in that layer of thinking. And so something to just really think about as we close out, and I'm going to come back to my slide deck, is that this power of student thinking is really, really important. And one of the experts that I used to follow when I was in teacher schools and whatever, Lori Shepard, she says that assessments that have strong instructional value can never be all multiple choice or all worksheets, quite frankly. And so looking at that the feedback needs to engage with the thought process itself and and that is what has a massive impact. And so we're looking to how do we change scores in classrooms? And in a lot of places that I go, I see these PLCs where people are looking at the scores of a test and they're saying, well, what can we do different to change the scores of the test? But the scores of the test are coming from multiple choice questions. And so a person like me with dyslexia, sometimes I get fatigue in reading. And so by the end of the test, I'm not answering them the way that I should. I'm guessing a lot. And I could see people sitting in a PLC being like, well, kids aren't getting those last questions because the dyslexic kids are they have the fatigue. They have the things that would give you the wrong data. And this would give you stronger data. I wish that all PLCs could change to looking at this type of thinking data rather than just the data from those multiple choice questions. And I'm sure some PLCs do, but most that I've worked with don't. So we often don't fully understand our own thoughts until we put them into words. So this thinking becomes our learning becomes clearer through this expression that we're doing in Snorkl. We also know that verbalizing equals learning, articulating ideas, shapes and clarifies them. And then this one's really important for me as a dyslexic student, or when I was, but we've always focused everything in on writing. So our reflection that we know is meaning making, and that's how we learn. Without reflection, we don't really solidify the learning process, but most teachers put it into a writing activity. And when you do that, you have your ESL students who can't tell you everything because it's also fatigue in trying to write in this target language, And then for the neurodivergent kid, the ADD, the whatever, this can be really hard. But if you ask me just to talk about my learning in addition to or yes and situation, but not always focusing on writing, that can be really important. And finally, we know that metacognition, this expression and cognition go hand in hand. And if I can tell you what I've learned it. And when I have to sit down and think to you, how am I going to explain this concept that I know, but now I've got to put it into words? That is applying something to a new and novel situation. And that's where we have learning. And a lot of times learning forgets the reflective process. And some of this isn't even reflective, but I always equate learning and designing a lesson to being a chef. And then if I'm a chef and I forget salt, no matter what happens, it's not going to be as good. I need that little bit of salt. So metacognition is that salt for me. That reflection is that salt for me. It's the thing that people forget because they're hurrying to the next concept. And it's so super important. And that's just the reflective process sometimes just answering the way we would on a worksheet, but doing it in more dynamic where kid gets that instant feedback is important. So Snorkl has given me this QR code, and I share it way too much, I'm sure, because I've shared it on TikToks and Instagram Reels. But if you scan this code, you can have the upgraded version of Snorkl to try. So that way you can use Snorkl Coach, which gives kids hints when they're when maybe they're stuck and they don't know an answer, but it can come on and be like, well, remember this or this, and give them some hints. So you can have the upgraded version of Snorkl for free for until July 2026. So you can really try it. And when it comes time to like making some decisions in your school district, you will have had a chance to really see, does this work for you? So I'm going to come back. I'm going to stop sharing. And are there any questions that I didn't see that are important? Because when I was off screen, I couldn't see them. So someone asked this, and you guys might want to answer this because you do have the, well, you pay, but, or I don't know, but have you had people use the collaboration feature?
No, we have not yet. We've just dived into the Snorkl Coach, but we have not used the collaboration feature yet.
And I haven't yet either.
Yeah. We do love the Snorkl Coach though.
Do you want to talk about that at all, John?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the options is for teachers to turn on student-to-student collaboration, which allows, after students have submitted and recorded their response, recorded and submitted, they can actually see their peers and give each other feedback. And that way, there's actually some crossover to similarities to what fifth grade used to provide as well, where you can provide some of that sort of community piece. But it's always optional for the teacher and if they want to toggle that feature on or off.
One other thing is in Texas, and I know we're not all from Texas, but people might start to get this. Texas is very big on their ELL students, yeah. And they have something called TELPUS, and I'm probably saying it wrong, TELPUS, but kids have to talk about their learning. And it's actually part of an assessment that they do. And this is a really good way to prepare them for that as well. And Omar set it up at the top. Omar definitely knows about this kind of thing. So,
oh, I was just going to say something just fun, just a tip. And Holly, actually, you had said it before, just with all ed tech tools in general, students should really try those getting started activities first. So like if you're just starting out using Snorkl, grab one of those getting started activities. It's like, it's the using.
I'm going to go there right now.
Okay, yeah, go there because there are several that are really fun. The peanut butter and jelly one is awesome. It will throw even adults off, but it's great to start with something non-academic first that they can experience the tool and play around with, and that you yourself can feel comfortable with first before using it in an academic way. So we actually encourage teachers to do that first, and the getting started ones are a lot of fun.
So she's talking about this try a sample activity, and here it's loaded with like gas-filled balloons, and she was talking about the fork and mac and cheese and the
PB&J, and then there's like I think a pet dinosaur or a dragon maybe.
And I was coming over to the screen. Do you say that you have teachers try it? And
so when we do professional learning, that's what we use if we're not using a content creator, but usually it kind of just makes things, I don't know, kind of fun, and teachers are more relaxed. You start out with that, but kids like it too. They want to experience the tool firsthand with something non-academic. That way they have buy-in. Like the kids need buy-in, right?
To not be scared. Like,
yeah. And like, just like, oh, this is really cool. Oh, look, I do get feedback. And again, it's kind of funny. I said the PB&J, we actually had one of our teachers use the PB&J in class, and she actually brought in for her students the actual PB&J jars, and then had them do that, respond in the Snorkl, and then have each other, they played back what they had, how they had responded, and see if they could actually make the PB&J, and they were realizing where they had gone wrong in their response. So that was fun too. But
that's it.
Anyway, just a tip, something that we do.
It's a good tip for me, actually.
Holly, you click on the return to teacher button right at the top, that big purple bar.
Okay. The big purple bar, yes, because I'm in student mode right now. And just so you all know, sometimes I get myself in student mode and then I return to the teacher, which puts me back in my own dashboard.
Yeah, so all those getting started activities are available for teachers to use with their students as well in the Snorkl library. And so if you go into the library
here.
Yep. And then scroll down just a little bit to the getting started activities. Yep, getting started. It's the general. Scroll up on the right-hand side.
Sorry.
Yep, getting started activities. And so here you can find that peanut butter and jelly sandwich question. There's a fun question there. The top one in the middle column is spoon and fork, macaroni and cheese. Is it better to eat macaroni and cheese with a spoon or a fork? But teachers then can assign these getting started activities to their students as a fun way of introducing it to their students for the first time.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to get off, stop sharing. And so I hope this showed you the power, and the power really comes from where you take it. Because when I first showed it to Prosper, I showed the math example. I didn't even think to show you guys the student examples that will be going forward. But also, we have discussed this at Prosper the times that I've been there, is that you have to start with a low, well, not even low, a fun activity for students so that they are not stressed. They think that this is fun. They want to do it again. And that's just the tip for any kind of technology integration, quite frankly. They also have edu protocols in there. If you're familiar with edu protocols, things like that. So lots of ways to get started. And this is what I find when I train teachers, is that they use a lot of those initial activities and then they start to kind of move away from that. And that's exactly what's happened to Prosper. So just to prove my point. So are there any important questions that I haven't seen since I was away from the screen? There seems to be a long one here. My school, make sure it's approved.
Yeah, there's a question there sort of around just privacy in general, and happy to just give a quick voiceover to that. Student safety is something that we take really, really seriously at Snorkl. We're iKeep Safe certified. We're Common Sense Media or privacy verified. We're happy to sign a privacy agreement with your school or with your district as well. And questions, happy to answer questions.
As a trainer who goes out to a lot of schools, one of the hardest places to get through because of security issues is New York public schools and the New York Department of Ed, and you've gotten through there. So I always say you've gotten through them. I doubt anyone else would not do it. But I want to say one last thing that I just saw, that do these grades go in to Schoology? And I just want to put just a Holly Clark. This is not anyone else. I do know that the Michelles agree with me on this, but these kind of formative things, I would not give them a grade, because formative assessment is meant to form learning. And that's why it's called formative assessment. So it shouldn't be high stakes grading yet. You're just in that process. And so while I know that we need some grades, because I've worked with parents who just want to see grades in the grade book, just maybe rethink how this formative assessment might look in that scenario.
We've also seen students shut down after they get when we first were trying to tell them not to use it as a grade. The kids would see that and be like, "Well, I'm done. I didn't get it. My grade's done." And that's not what we want this for. We want it to engage with the feedback.
And I think we sort of touched on it before, but part of the power, I think maybe you could speak to also, is students are often trying their Snorkl activities multiple times. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they get excited about the questions, because I love that in the feedback, it sandwiches the feedback, right? So even if the student hasn't done a great response, it gives them something really good to start out with, things they can work on. It always ends with a question. And so the kid's always like, oh, I could do better. Oh, I didn't think about that. And so they want to revise it again, not because it's for a grade. I've
even seen teachers redo it later.
Yeah, it's
if they did one at the beginning of a unit and then they'll do the same one again at the end. and the kids don't always realize it's the same one, but then they'll be able to compare where they were and where they are now.
It's just more engaging, more of a high reward for them. They don't feel judged, graded, critiqued, right? Yeah. So,
and it's really important for ELL and dyslexic kids. And it also shows inside of Snorkl, kids can see their snorkels over time and can start to make their own sort of ideas around, oh, I did grow in this one, and they have access to those. Anything else as we end? Yeah, Scott is.
I know, I was reading Scott's.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting.
Thank you, Scott.
Years. But maybe AI will help us with that. I don't know. I thought, Chromebooks might help us with that, but still waiting too. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And thanks for coming. I will be sharing more TikToks and Instagram reels about how to use this. I did one about how worksheets suck and that this is so much better. I probably shouldn't even use that word, but we're going to let it go. And anyway, so please, if you, those will be in my newsletters on those things. So thank you all for coming. And I hope that you're inspired, because this is a game changer.
Thanks so much, Holly. Thanks, Michelle. And I appreciate everyone joining us. If there's other questions that you have, feel free to reach out to the Snorkl team as well. You can reach me at Jon, Jon, at snorkl.app. And feel free to stick around and put more chat here in the comments. We'll keep the comment section going here for a little bit after the call as well. Thanks for joining. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.